Hello everyone. So I'm here joined by Nathan Guerra. You can see he is actually there riding on his bike, doing a bit of indoor training. He's taken a bit of time out of his day today just to chat to us about Cycligent Experimental Race Series Live. So Nathan, this is one of the first LAN indoor head-to-head Zwift events that we've seen. Pretty exciting stuff, don't you think?
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. I'm super excited. It's going to be fun. I'm a little bit like, I wish I was racing, but at the same time, like commentating is kind of where I started out in it all. So there's a few I'm familiar with that are going to be at the race from Zwift, as well as in real life that I've raced with, and kind of being able to, being able to do that and race with them. I think there'll be plenty of opportunities, as I think there's going to be a lot more events like this. But at the same time, being able to play the role as a commentator at the event, I'm super excited about too.
No, definitely, and this is one of the things that we met. We've worked together doing commentating for quite a while now. So you've been doing all this commentating and broadcasting on races from people around the world. So and these races have been happening on Zwift, virtually, people in their homes. So how big a deal? You come from this eSports background, gaming online. How big a deal is it that this is coming to people head to head in these sort of indoor style events?
Well, I think that their tagline, bringing the sports into the esport, like that whole idea, that's one thing we could talk about how going into a LAN event and having the verification of everybody being weighed in on site on the same calibrated trainer. So now you got a real competition and you're taking a real sport and you're combining it with the virtual environment that we see with esports taking off with right now. And so that's a huge deal. The highest profile events in all of gaming and esports has been always LAN, always having the verification on site. Like I've mentioned in Zwiftcast many a times before, it's not just Zwift that has calibration or issues where you just got to be on site, right?
Yeah.
And so having the on-site competition for verification of who everybody is, having all the personalities there, being able to meet, shake hands, look each other in the eyes, we're going to compete here. It's a whole nother level. And then being able to see the real effort right there in front of you, kind of like how we tried to develop with Zwift on board, but having them all next to each other and hammering on each other in that environment is, and then being able to create a virtual set and throw that out to the whole world is, that's kind of the big deal. I think the idea of like why you could just go race out in real life is because of how accessible a virtual environment is. That is the amazing part of it, is that like cycling made social with Zwift, right? Well, now we can take how accessible that social environment is and that competition is and broadcast it to the whole world in an amazing, immediately accessible way. A real life venue is extremely difficult, and still we get frustrated watching the events because of things that you're unable to do. But with a gaming virtual environment, you can do so much with it, as well as bringing its own flair to how the competitions play out, because it's another way of cycling, right? So just like track has its own little niches of how you race, and like MTB and road, well, Zwift has a whole lot of little niches about how you race as well, and it'll have its own trainer environment of how you would try and race each other. So, I mean, there's so many different aspects I'm really excited about. Obviously, I can't stop talking about it.
No, definitely, and we've seen like a lot of things. We hear stories about how online gaming, starts off from these small roots, these small kind of local events. There's documentaries out there about League of Legends, probably the biggest game out there, the biggest video game, and now how it's up on the Intel Extreme Masters. Huge arenas events in like football stadiums, and thousands of people go to watch that. It's got to start somewhere, and I think having these sort of local LAN events there to bring the guys out, to get them racing, add a new sort of verification to people racing out on Zwift. It's going to bring that a big aspect. So touch on the racing a little bit. We're used to seeing Zwift people out on Zwift racing against each other. You don't really know what's behind that person. So like this sort of aspect of being able to see the people next to you, when you're racing with them head to head, and just chatted to Casey Shum earlier, and he mentioned about you'd be able to hear the kind of gears changing, the clicking of the derailleur as they drop into a bit of a harder gear to put down the power. It's going to create some interesting stuff, getting that initial feedback that we don't usually get, isn't it?
Yeah, that's an interesting point I hadn't thought of, is like you can prepare a little bit more for an attack. Speaking of switching gears, I'm actually out on the same course that you are right now, that you're sitting in, going up the London climb, and I suddenly on my single speed. All right, so there we go. We're through the climb. All right. So, anyways, the switching of gears and the feedback from those that are around you, that's going to be interesting. Right now, all we have is heart rate. Unless you don't know the other riders' max heart rate, you don't know their power file that well. I mean, that's really good information to have and kind of know where people stand. But being able to physically see what they're up to and hear what they're up to and respond to attacks very quickly, all we got right now is a watt per kilogram on the right-hand side, and maybe if the avatar stands up or starts to walk away from you. So it'll definitely add a whole new real-life aspect of how you are going to race an individual that's next to you still. You probably have a lot more tactics. At the same time, I have a feeling that the more experienced Zwifters might have an upper hand a little bit with the draft and with how avatars interact. I mean, it's the same way as when you walk into real life and ride in a peloton and you're inexperienced with holding the wheel, you're inexperienced with when to take a pull, you're inexperienced with how well a pack can ride back up to your wheel and whether or not they're on the rivet. I mean, all of that's going to matter. And so a few of these riders who might not have a whole lot of Zwift experience might find themselves burning too many matches here and there. Who knows? We'll have to see how that real life versus the virtual works out there.
Yeah, no, definitely, I agree with that. We've seen them, kind of different styles of, racing. We've seen some, pretty good professional racers jump into Zwift, and they've struggled to kind of keep with the pack. And I don't think it's anything to do with sometimes, the legitimacy of the power numbers that are being put out. I think it's because it's a whole different style of racing. As much as you have road racing and mountain bike racing and track racing, it's all a different style of racer, a different style to kind of stay at the front of the race. So having this, and be able to give that extra little bit of legitimacy to the racing on Zwift, it's going to put in some exciting stuff. So let's touch about your role. You're not going to be there racing, unfortunately. For a commentator, what are you looking forward to seeing the most as a commentator for this sort of real life racing?
Well, the cool thing as a commentator, I think, is having an extremely controlled environment. So knowing that they're going to be doing it in such a way where we're going to be on a closed course. There's not going to be anybody interfering. You have really great specifics on who each of the riders are, what their backgrounds are, being able to chat with them a little bit beforehand and get a feel of their personality, be able to talk about that a whole bunch. Also having just having a set and being able to have feedback and maybe walk around a little bit, getting different kinds of shots that you might not be able to get from just in game and just seeing those virtual environments. Again, what we tried to create with that on site. Also, I think having an audience in a crowd is going to be a whole new thing that's going to bring a new level of hype to the whole thing. I have a feeling we might have some music going. There's some music going in the background. There's some hype being created around the environment. I mean, creating an arena is a whole new level. I mean, right now, we try to create that with some flair in our virtual sets, but having a real life set that then pushed out into a virtual set with that real life environment again, with the riders, but then also with the crowd and with whatever is being produced there on site in the background, I think is going to come through as well. And the whole race, competitive party maybe, or excitement, crowd, sports environment, I think that'll be created on site. There's going to be bringing just a whole new level of excitement that I think the viewers are going to sense.
No, definitely. I see it being, we see like the kind of the races over in Europe in the velodromes, and they put like a bit more of a kind of a disco party atmosphere to them. Have them on late at night. I think that's going to be like something that we'll see from this sort of event. People sort of kind of really getting into it, enjoying the atmosphere, getting a ride on the bikes as well. I think it's going to be a great, great event. The Cycligent Experimental Racer Series live. Something that's going to be great and new to Zwift. So Nathan, Guerra, thanks for your time there.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Johnny.
No, that's what I was going to say. No, it's effectively time. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
Well, I think that's the main pull with these kind of events. A lot of times, the hardest events to create as a viewing experience that's great entertainment and fun to watch is when they aren't located in one space. I mean, probably one of the hardest things to have interest with is going to be any events that cover huge, large distances, you know, and so that's the pull of anything that has a stadium, anything that has a short track, anything that a viewer or a spectator audience can come in and get around at a venue is going to have a larger pull. And so I think it's just going to add a whole new level as these events grow and we have more and more and more of them to the whole Zwift racing scene, you know, and virtual racing scene. It's going to be I'm super excited, obviously, and I can't wait to get down there, and especially meeting all the people that we've been interacting with for like 2 years. Yeah. We've been up this with these people, and now we're gonna have like this, pilot event where we're doing this awesome new thing, just like we started 2 years ago. You know, all right, well, we're gonna start casting. Here we go. Turn the camera on. See what happens. Well, let's go. Turn the trainers on. Get everybody in the house. See what happens. So I think a whole lot's going to happen, just like we've seen with the race casting as well. So super excited.
No, I think it's definitely going to be a huge step forward in Zwift racing. Brilliant. Okay, Nathan Guerra, thanks so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you out there commentating on the event.
Thanks a lot, Johnny.